5 steps to end bed sharing. So if you're sharing your bed with your child and you really don't want to, it's not working out and it's not what you want anymore, here are 5 steps to get that ended and move on so you can all sleep more soundly. The first tip I've got for you is it has to either be allowed or not allowed. It has to be black and white for a child. If they aren't allowed in your bed all night long, but then come 5 a.m. you give in and let them in, that doesn't work. They just know that they are allowed at some point and they don't really know at what point that rule kicks in. So they're going to just keep trying at various times and it's just going to be relentless. So make it really clear, a clear message for your child. It's either allowed or it's not allowed. If it's allowed and you decide that you're actually quite happy with it, brilliant. But it has to be allowed any time. Or it's not allowed and it's just not allowed full stop. No matter what time it is, if it's night time, between bedtime and at least 6 a.m, that child has to sleep in their own bed. When it's morning time, you're up. They don't come in and get into yours then. Step number 2, or tip number 2 for you, is that they just don't grow out of this. People say, oh, they'll grow out of it. Well, if you're happy to wait till they're somewhere between 6 and 8 years old, then okay, fine, maybe even older. If you're willing to wait until then, and it's okay and you can survive that way and you're all sleeping all right, then fine. But they don't just grow out of it or decide one day that, no, I don't fancy that anymore. They love it. You probably love it. So why are they going to just give it up? They won't. So if you're waiting for that, you're going to be waiting a long time. My third step for you is there can't be any one-offs. You can't say your child doesn't usually sleep in your bed and then one day you go, oh, you had a bad dream. Oh, just come in my bed then. If you do that after a bad dream one night, you're going to find that the next day and the next day and the next day you're going to get little requests. And your child might give in after a few nights of trying, or they might keep going for a week or so. If you give in again, you're in for a long one. But even just a one-off, perhaps your child has never slept in your bed before, but you let them just once, expect to have about a week of returning them to bed and refusing to let them in before you're back on track. It doesn't take much, especially for those switched on kids. A one-off will be a green light. No one-offs. People often say, what about if my child is sick? What if they're not well? Well, if you really need to be with them because they're not well, go and sleep in their room. Separate from them, but in their room so you can keep an eye on them. The chances are slim that that's the case. Sometimes it's just it makes you feel better. And if that's the case, then go to them, but don't bring them in with you. Let their sleep space be maintained throughout that illness. If yours has to change, fine. So no one-offs. Fourth step for you is about a consistent response. You need to respond consistently to those wakings or requests to get into your bed. If your child's in a cot, you're going to need to go to them and respond in the same way every time. However you're responding, make sure it's the same every time. Not shush, shush, back to bed, shush, shush, back to bed, shush, shush, back to bed. Oh, come in mine. That's no good. It has to be consistent. And if your child's coming into you and coming into your room, then again, return them back to bed, return them back to bed, return them back to bed every single time, even if it's 50 times that night. And that might sound grueling, but it's what it's going to take. Because if that response changes even one time, that child's going to think, okay, well, I know that there are times when they won't put me back in bed, so I'll just keep going in hope that I'll get one of those. It's exactly like playing a fruit machine. The only reason people even put money in a fruit machine is because they know, they have that psychology that it does pay out. Maybe they even saw it pay out once, but they know that it does. That's what it's programmed to do. So they are playing in the hope that they're going to get the payout. And a child will do that. It's intermittent reinforcement. A child will do that if they think there's a chance, just maybe, that you might let them in your bed. So that message has to be really clear that it's not going to happen, and the consistent response will make that clear. That might mean returning a wandering child back to bed multiple times, or it might be going in to reassure one that's in a cot multiple times. Whatever it looks like, make it consistent. And no excuses, no, oh, I just don't know how my child ended up in my bed. Really? Really? Parents do say that sometimes, and I'm not sure how true it is. I think as a parent, you're pretty wired to hearing things. But if you really are a deep sleeper and you genuinely did not hear that your child got in with you and you found them in your bed the next morning, then you need to set up some alarms. You need to put wind chimes behind the door so that when it opens, it's jingling, or an empty bottle of rice or pasta behind a door so that it makes a noise when they come through. You need to somehow trigger yourself to wake up so that you have to put that child back in their bed. So no excuses on that consistent response. And the fifth step I've got for you is really to just reassure you that it is hard, but it's a short-term pain for a long-term gain. And yet you might say, yeah, I'm not putting my child back to bed that many times a night. It's not forever. This isn't going to go on indefinitely. This is not your life as you know it. This is just for a number of nights. This is just for probably a week or so, maybe even a few nights, depending on your child and depending on how much they actually put that to the test. But it might feel a frustrating thing to have to do. You're not doing it for long, and you're doing it for you and your child and your family. So you kind of put yourself through that small pain window to get the long-term gain and reap the benefits. It's so worth it when you see it through.